Welcome to this TOEFL speaking tutorial dedicated to question 3 from the TOEFL speaking section. In this tutorial, we'll explore how to effectively tackle this task by understanding the two sources of information you'll be working with, the reading and the lecture. We'll cover how to approach the task by developing your reading comprehension and active listening skills, the best strategies for preparing your response, including structuring your answer for clarity, essential speaking tips to deliver your response with confidence, such as organizing your thoughts and using transition words. Let's dive into these strategies to help you succeed on this important part of the TOEFL test. This is the part where you read a short passage followed by a part of a lecture. Now, this particular task isn't just about recalling information, it's about demonstrating your ability to synthesize and connect ideas presented in two different formats. So, what exactly does this question entail? The passage will typically introduce a fundamental academic term or concept, providing you with a concise definition or explanation. Following this reading, you will listen to part of a lecture on the very same academic topic. The lecturer will typically elaborate on the concept introduced in the reading by providing concrete examples and offering more in-depth explanations. Think of the reading as presenting the what and the lecture as illustrating the how and why. Now, how should you approach this task effectively? Let's take a look at the key skills tested in this part of the test. First, we have reading comprehension. This might seem obvious, but it's the bedrock of your response. Your primary goal here is to grasp the core concept presented in the reading. What is the central idea being discussed? What is being defined or explained? You should pay close attention to and identify any key terms and concepts that are introduced. These are the specialized vocabulary and fundamental ideas that are crucial to understanding the topic. Make a mental note of them or jot them down briefly. Next, active listening. This is where you engage with the lecture. Your primary focus here should be on the examples provided by the lecturer. These examples are the key to understanding how the abstract concept from the reading manifests in a real-world context. Listen attentively to the details of these examples. Furthermore, note any key details, additional information, explanations, or even subtle nuances that the lecturer provides about the core concept. Sometimes the lecturer might offer a slightly different perspective or expand on certain aspects. Once you've processed both the reading and the lecture, the next crucial stage is preparing your response. This is where you start to formulate your spoken answer. Here's a general recommendation for structuring your response. Summarize the reading. Begin by briefly and clearly explaining the main idea or definition that you encountered in the reading passage. You don't need to go into excessive detail, but you need to demonstrate that you understood the foundational concept. For example, for a passage that discusses the benefits of renewable energy sources, specifically solar power, you might summarize the main idea by saying something like this. The reading passage explains that solar energy is a clean, renewable energy source that offers an alternative to fossil fuels. It emphasizes that solar power helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions and is a globally abundant resource. Describe the lecture example. Following your summary of the reading, you should then briefly explain the example that the lecturer provided. Again, focus on the essential details that illustrate the concept. For example, for a lecture providing an example of a solar farm in California, you might summarize the lecture by saying something like this. The lecturer, on the other hand, gives an example of a solar farm in California that provides energy to thousands of homes. This farm uses highly efficient solar panels that capture sunlight more effectively, which decreases the reliance on traditional fossil fuels. Connect the two. This is the most critical part. You must explicitly explain how the lecture's example supports, illustrates, or expands upon the concept that was presented in the reading. How does the example make the abstract idea more concrete? What new insights does the lecture offer based on the initial definition? For example, you might want to say something like this: the solar farm example directly supports the reading's point about solar energy being a sustainable solution. By supplying power to so many homes, the solar farm shows how solar energy can significantly reduce the need for fossil fuels. Additionally, the advanced panels make solar energy even more efficient, expanding on the idea that solar power is not only clean but increasingly practical and effective. This example illustrates how solar energy can become a more reliable and widespread solution, just as the reading suggests. Now let's talk about some speaking tips to help you deliver a clear and effective response. Organize your thoughts. Before you even begin speaking, take a brief moment to mentally structure your answer. A logical flow is essential for clarity. A common and effective structure, as we just discussed, is reading summary, lecture example, and then the connection between the two. Use clear and concise language. Avoid jargon or overly complex sentence structures. Your goal is to communicate effectively and demonstrate your understanding. Get straight to the point and avoid unnecessary rambling. Maintain a natural pace. Don't rush through your response, but also don't speak so slowly that you run out of time. Aim for a comfortable and steady pace that allows the listener to follow your explanation easily. Use transition words. Employing transition words and phrases can significantly improve the coherence of your response. Think of words like, for example, in other words, furthermore, to illustrate, similarly, or in contrast. These act as signposts, guiding the listener through your explanation and highlighting the relationship between the reading and the lecture. Practice regularly. Like any skill, integrating information from different sources and speaking fluently takes practice. Work with sample reading passages and lectures. This will help you become more comfortable with the format, improve your timing, and refine your ability to identify key information and connect ideas effectively. Let's look at a concrete example to solidify these points. Imagine you read a passage which defines cognitive dissonance, and you hear part of a lecture providing an example of cognitive dissonance by discussing the phenomenon of buyer's remorse. Here's what your response might look like. The reading passage defines cognitive dissonance as the mental discomfort that arises when an individual holds conflicting beliefs or experiences inconsistencies. The lecture illustrates this concept by discussing the phenomenon of buyer's remorse. After making a purchase, consumers may experience cognitive dissonance if they start to doubt their decision. To resolve this discomfort, they might seek reassurance by reading positive reviews or focusing on the positive aspects of the product. This example demonstrates how individuals actively seek to reduce the mental discomfort associated with cognitive dissonance. Notice how this response first summarizes the definition from the reading, then clearly describes the example from the lecture, and finally explicitly connects the example back to the core concept of cognitive dissonance. So, the key takeaway here is that question 3 of the TOEFL speaking section is fundamentally about your ability to understand and integrate information from different sources. By focusing on grasping the main concept from the reading, carefully listening for and understanding the lecture's examples, and then effectively connecting the two in your response, you can confidently address this challenging aspect of the exam. Remember, practice is key to developing this skill. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more TOEFL tips and tricks. Thank you for watching. Good luck and happy studying.